Don, let's say this. Let's say that you or that someone destroys Yellowstone National Park.
Let's talk about the White House.
Listen,
because that makes a lot more sense.
No. Let's think about someone.
Right? Am I right?
Don, listen. Think about someone destroying Yellowstone.
Impossible.
Okay?
Carry on.
No. They buy it and they decide I'm going to build a property on it. They die and they bequeath it for some reason to some guy in Indiana named Don. And you get it. Do you move into that palace that the guy who destroyed Yellowstone?
Well, is it on?
Are you
is it
stupid?
on top of the geyser?
Do you move into a free mansion?
Yes,
I do.
The god of the bison.
The answer is always yes.
Would you do it?
No.
Exactly.
What? Oh, come on.
Because most people would not do something that was like that tragic, man. People lost land and homes, and someone built a luxury palace on top of it. You're not going to live there.
Incorrect.
Oh, Don.
Again, I'm not the one that did it.
Oh, Don. Oh, okay. Anyway.
You know what? Here, I'll let them live in the guest houses permanently. Anybody that was damaged.
Anybody?
Yeah.
It's a lot more than just the guest houses can accommodate.
Well, that's their problem.
Apparently that's not Don's problem, so.
People might mysteriously start dropping like flies. I don't know. We'll see.
There might be accidents.
You
never know.
There are a lot of accidents back in 64.
So anyway,
actually, he's only going to give the guest house to anybody who's still alive from that time.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So Vespasian
You were born then?
doesn't want to be anything like Nero, so he gives the land back to the people. But he does take a part of it to create something for them, a gift for the people, the biggest and most beautiful amphitheater in the world.
This guy, he's just ugh.
Mr. Goody
It sounds
Everything's for the people. Have all my stuff.
Look at this giant statue of me. That's Don then. Apparently Don is more Nero-like than Vespasian-like.
Do you fiddle, Don?
No.
Would you fiddle if there was a large fire?
No.
Why? Is that too far? That's too much? That's crossing the line for you?
I don't want to fiddle.
Guitar.
Fine.
You're a dick. Okay. All right, so sometime in 70, the construction on the Colosseum starts, but it wouldn't open its doors until 80. So that means that the Colosseum was built in 10 years or less.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive considering most of the
It
other
is
things.
wildly impressive that something of that magnitude can be finished in 10 years.
Not after his
it wasn't,
mansion.
Actually, I take that back. It really wasn't finished. There was other things that had to be added at the time, but it was mostly finished. A good majority of it was done in 10 years.
Didn't you say his mansion had a rotating room?
Yeah.
That was water powered?
Yeah.
They built that in like 2 years. Right? I mean, that's more impressive.
Yes. Smaller
but the
scale.
Colosseum is higher or taller.
Allegedly, we don't know.
Allegedly?
That's kind of still there. I'm pretty sure they can measure it.
Oh, Don.
Sounds like, prove it. Put it in front of me.
So anyway, the Colosseum would open its doors in year 80, 1 year after Vespasian's death. So he would never actually see it fully in function. The opening falls under the rule of his son, Titus, Emperor Titus. In honor of the opening of the Flavian Amphitheater, which was its original name, the Flavian Amphitheater because of the Flavian era,
right.
Titus declared 100 days of games, and this included gladiatorial combat, animal versus animal fights. So basically, it's like cockfights before cockfights.
Right. But probably with bears.
They had a lot of animals.
Bears, tigers. Well, probably not tigers.
No, tigers. They were using tigers in the amphitheater, the Colosseum. Thank you. There were so basically there was hunts. So they would release an animal and then they would have to one man.
It wasn't much of a hunt,
right?
Well, there he is.
I wonder where he is.
Think about it like bullfighting.
Right.
It's the same concept.
Right.
It's
like shooting fish in a barrel.
They would also use it for executions of prisoners.
Like gladiators?
No, prisoners. Well, yeah, because there were sometimes there were prisoners, but I think gladiators were mostly slaves, but these were criminals. That they would just execute for wrongdoings.
Would they put them up against like a lion,
or just kill them?
That's boring.
But there are also
the
stories.
Lion.
But hold on, there were also stories about the Christian martyrs who were killed in many ways. But it was because like everyone thinks that they were fed to the lions. They were put up against lions. That's not entirely true. They were also burned. They were
cooked before they gave them to the lions.
That's only if they were witches.
But they were also,
Or if they weren't, they thought they were witches and then they weren't. That's what it is.
they were also like bombarded with arrows. There was no set way to for these Christians to be murdered.
Right.
They would do it in any way they can. But probably the most awesome thing that one thing I did not know about the Colosseum is that in its early days they would actually have mock naval battles.
So it flood the place?
They would flood it. And they would have these just basically like reenactments of naval battles, which is awesome.
All these little Romans with their little remote control boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm not sure how big a ship they really could have gotten in there, because the Colosseum has an area of like 6 acres. So I mean, but obviously that's the entire thing, and so maybe not the arena itself. But yeah, actually, and I didn't know this either, but a lot of times they would actually have a fence put in the arena, to where that everyone in the place could see it. So like if you were like up close, maybe you couldn't see like down right in front of the wall, so they'd have it up a ways, so no matter where you sat, everyone could see what was going on. So because originally it was not designed with a ring, because the whole Colosseum is a ring, so there was a fortification that was also a ring, and then in the middle it was clay, dirt, and whatever. So it was actually pretty easy to flood it back when it was originally made.
Yeah.
After Titus's death, which was very short, I mean, I think he died in let's see, what was that, 82? So another couple years.
Right.
Domitian. I'm not sure how to pronounce that emperor's name. It was the emperor that followed Titus. It was actually his brother, another son of Vespasian. He finished construction of the ideal Colosseum. So, they would do things here and there, but the Colosseum was very carefully planned out. It was not an easy thing to build. I mean, this was very, you think it's just like a circle, but there's a lot went into it because of how it's designed. Like all the pressures and every way had to be perfect for this thing to maintain its stability. Obviously, it wouldn't matter much because earthquakes are going to wreck this thing, but so it had to be done just right to make it stand how it did. So it was actually this third emperor that would finish the construction that included a third level
with jumbotrons and specialty suites.
Yeah. And more importantly, it would be let's say the bottom level, the basement, as it were, because before with the naval battles they didn't have a basement, but he finished the construction where he added a subterranean level, and this bottom part was used for storage or for hoisting new challengers up into the arena. So like in the movies when they show it just coming up from the ground, that was legitimate. They actually worked out hoists. So like if there was a hunt going on, if there was somebody versus an animal, they could just raise up an animal and have it be released right from the underneath the stadium.
Wow.
Which, if you think about it, that's a cool kind of little addition. Like for the people watching, like it's this guy versus a lion, and oh crap, another lion shows up. Like
right.
That's pretty, and in such a cool fashion. Like if they just come out from a door, that's one thing, but coming up from the ground, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
at this point, the original concept of the Colosseum is completed, but it looks way different than how I know it today. Obviously, actually, I apologize when I said before. A correction. It was the 4th story that Domitian had added on. So there was 4 stories, and it was a completed circle. Now we know it as this complete ruin, but it was a complete circle. And these 4 stories each contain different style columns from different periods. So the first style was they had Doric columns, and the second level had Ionic columns, and then the third had Corinthian style columns. The height of the Colosseum was about 150 feet, and that's about 45 meters. So it's a big structure. There was at least 80 archways, because you see all the little arcs that go out throughout the Colosseum. There was at least 80 of them. And most
arches?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess arches is probably the better word for that. I put archways, which is why I'm saying that. Most of which, these arches were numbered, 1 through 76, for tickets. Just like you see at a stadium today. So
crazy.
I don't know, because I think most of the time it was free, but you still had to have a ticket to get inside.
Right.
And then it'll tell you where to go sit.
Right.
The third floor arches had statues that were visible from the outside. So now it just like they're empty, but back in the day, they actually had a statue in every single one of them. Pretty ornate looking.
Wow.
There were very large awnings that were on the top, kind of like you'd see at the football games. They had like to keep the sun out. They actually had those. which is funny because the poor who were up on the very top were nice and shaded. All the people in the bottom level sweated their asses off.
Yeah.
Basically, how it was situated, the rich sat toward the bottom, and then the middle class and the poor. And actually, I saw one source that said the poor and women were on the very top in the standing room. Which is nuts. But I guess it happens, at a different time. And I also found that there were women gladiators, which is interesting. So overall, the Colosseum sat 50,000, but probably could have held 87,000 with standing room if people were really jam-packed in there. But it sat 50,000 spectators. Most of the Colosseum was made of limestone and concrete, with most of the ground floor when you walked in, most of that was coated with marble. So it was much, much better looking than it was, or how it is now. Like, it was very pretty when it was first around. But what's interesting though is that the average seat at a Coliseum when they expected people to come in and sit down, it was about a 15-inch seating. So you're talking about your flight seats being cramped.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
Well, people are generally smaller on that day, but that's still pretty tight.
Yeah.
15-inch
You're
seats.
just packing them in.
So yeah,
Like
think about that.
sardines.
So a typical day at the Coliseum lasted all day. It was a whole event, and it contained the following events. First thing comes in, chariot procession. All your people who are going to be performing or fighting that day are going to come in at one time, and they will all often say, Ave Imperator, moratori te salutant. Hail Emperor, those who are about to die salute you.
Oh, yeah.
For those about to die, we salute you.
I believe that was AC/DC that said that.
For those about to rock, we salute you. Yes. Yes, but anyway, Ave Imperator moratori te salutant. Or salutant. So the whole thing would start off with staged fights. So some kind of like gag, thing where it was more maybe comedy. So they would have these little stage things that were more for show.
Yeah.
Gladiatorial combats, the animal hunts, like we said. And they also started having plays at a certain point under Domitian, but they were often pretty bloody, and I'm not saying they're actually like, killing people, but they were adult theme, which I mean a different thing. Like when kids were watching people get murdered back in the day, but like, so these weren't like, you're not going there to see cats. You're going to see like maybe more religious things where people are getting murdered all the time, and I mean they were pretty bloody shows. Games and dramas continued until 404 when Emperor Honorius abolished gladiatorial combat. Taste had changed. Now the idea of putting man to man for fun was gotten kind of the point where like,
I mean, come on, this is 400.
Yeah, we're evolved.
Yeah.
So yeah, 404 is when that whole thing started, but they still continued with hunts and wrestling events. Man versus beast, that's a different situation, but man versus man, that was
right.
Too much. 523.
And we started off this whole segment by talking about what? Man versus man kicking crap out of each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Not to the death,
not
though.
to death, though.
No.
So
They stopped the
523.
fights,
So in 523, that was the last major performance for the Colosseum.
Really?
523. The last time they say like this.
So what was on the last bill?
You know what? I'm sure it was something along the lines of wrestling, hunting, that kind of thing, but it wasn't anything like gladiatorial because that had been abolished well before then. And the whole thing that because a big part of it is lack of funding. It costs money to put all this stuff on, and we have to understand that this is the fall of Rome. Rome was divided. It was East Rome and West Rome because you have people coming in, invading, and so if you don't have this one emperor and everything else that we can fund this and give to the people, now it costs money and there's no one to pay for it. Rome is gone, essentially. The Rome that they had known is gone. So over the next 1,000 years, more neglect and damage happened than repair. So it was getting damaged more than it was getting fixed. Now, that's not to say that it wasn't getting fixed. There were times that they would come in and try to do whatever they can, but, I mean, you can spend...
Slap a coat of paint on it.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that. I mean, I doubt that's not what happened, but that's a good...
trim the bushes.
Kind of idea. Like, maybe some minor renovations, but you can spend 2 years building up a wall, and then an earthquake happens and 2 walls fall.
Right.
So that kind of thing happens. So fire, earthquakes, robbers people stealing the marble, any kind of hardware they can